So we just did a video about how homebrew can't kill you, and today we're going to make a brew called Kilju.
Alright, so one of my favorite cocktails is the Mojito. And I share this passion with one of our moderators, Adam! Hi, Adam! And so he made a Kilju, which Brian's going to tell you what that actually is in a second, but he flavored his Mojito style. So that's what we're going to do today, and thus we dub it the Franklin.
Now, if you're wondering what Kilju is, that's the correct pronunciation. A lot of people might say Killju. Okay, it's K-I-L-J-U, as you can see right here, but it's actually pronounced Kilju, which is kind of ironic because it used to be illegal in Finland to make because it would kill you. It won't, obviously. It's a sugar wine is what it is. At its base, it is literally just bread yeast, yes, bread yeast, that's what they use. Bread yeast, white sugar, and water. And that's it. Now, people put fruits and lemon and stuff like that in it to flavor it, which led to the next step, taking Kilju up a notch. Another notch! And making it into a Mojito Kilju. Now, we are going to be using fresh mint from our garden. If you do not have access to fresh mint, and you probably don't unless you have a garden of your own, it's okay to use mint tea bags. As long as they're not like actual tea, get the herbal mint tea bags. That way it's just dried up mint leaves. That's really all it is. Now, a lot of people are going to ask about the preparation of our mint, and all I did was rinse them and get rid of most of the dead stuff because we don't use chemicals or anything like that in our backyard. If you're getting fresh mint from another source and you're unsure, you may want to wash it really good or use tea bags.
You will need a good amount of fresh mint.
About 1.5 ounces.
Yes.
By weight.
1 fresh lime.
Oh wait, word about the lime.
Oh.
This is a Kefir lime. Now, before anybody starts in on this, notice this is the lime, not the leaves. The limes are wonderful, and we're going to use this lime in this Kilju because why not? We grew this.
Derica, fun fact, when I make mojitos at home, I use our own Kefir limes to flavor them.
Yeah, we may have made the Kefir lime into like the bad guy of City Steading. And it's actually really not. The limes are wonderful. We use the lime juice and the limes all the time. It's just the leaves in a brew tend to add a little extra something that we really don't want.
There's also questionable whether the sap from the Kefir lime is actually good to ingest or not. So,
okay. Glad we tell people don't use it. So here's how we're going to do this. I have my 1.5 ounces of mint. Now, it's just been rinsed, nothing big, and I'm going to bruise it. And what I mean by that is I'm literally just kind of packing it up into a ball and bruising it. I could dry it and everything. Oh, wow, the mint smell. It's amazing. That's why I'm bruising it. It helps the oils to come out, and it helps the yeast be able to get to it.
So if you're familiar with actually concocting a mojito with fresh mint, you know that when you place it in the cocktail, you're going to bruise it by mashing it with the masher, which has a name that I forgot.
And I just simulated that kind of idea. Now, this is where if you're using tea bags, you want to make a tea first and then use the tea instead of water. Reason being, a tea bag will continue to extract forever. These are fresh. It's going to take a lot more time for them to extract. This is probably only going to ferment for 5 to 10 days anyway, so I'm not really worried about it because they're fresh. If I was using dried, I would definitely be making a tea first and putting that. Now, for this recipe, I'm going to be using quite a bit of sugar. Sugar is the only fermentable in this, so this is kind of a nice beginner wine if you've never made wine before, and I'll probably add this to our beginner or first-time brewers playlist because this just seems like a nice, simple thing. We're going to use a significant amount, 2.5 pounds. Now, you might be wondering, why 2.5 pounds? Well, each pound in a gallon of must is about 1.046 gravity. Actually, it's 0.046 gravity. The 1 just means that it's denser than water. So we add the 1 at the end. If that was confusing, we have a video on that I'll put a card to right here because it's way too much for me to explain in this video. But by using 2.5 pounds, I get 0.046 times 2.5, which brings me to a potential finished alcohol level of about 15.5%. I'm going to be using 71B yeast, also known as
71 Beast.
and that yeast tends to go a little higher than its tolerance, which is 14%. I've gotten it to 17% before. So if that happens, we'll just back sweeten this a little bit more, but I plan on having it be a little bit sweet in the beginning, and we'll just adjust as we go. So let me just pour in 2.5 pounds of sugar. I'm actually using Amazon Whole Foods 365 organic cane sugar. We just started trying this stuff. It seems really great. It actually has a little bit of a molasses smell to it, which is partially why I thought of it for this, because I thought brown sugar would turn its colors and be a little weird, because mojitos are traditionally made with rum, but you can also make them with vodka, which is what Derica usually does. So we're going with the mojito flavored killju rather than a killju flavored mojito. Anyway, I have 2.5 pounds of sugar in here, and I promise there's still mint in there. Okay, next, I want to put in a little bit of that lime, and all I'm going to do that is just peel some of the skin off that lime. Just want a little bit of peel. I don't want too much of the pith on the inside, and I certainly don't want the juice at this point, because why, Derica? Why don't I want juice at this point?
If you watched our video on tannins and acids, we go into greater detail that citric acid, which you can find in all citrus, such as limes, tends to turn into acetic acid during the fermentation process. So we are going to be adding the juice of the lime after primary is done, so that way we can avoid that transformation.
Acetic acid is what makes things taste like vinegar, or gives that soury, vinegary taste. So by not adding something that makes it taste like vinegar, hopefully we can avoid that. I didn't do a great job, but it doesn't matter. It's okay. It's good. Coincidentally, these limes, when they get fully ripe, turn yellow. They look like little oranges. They do not taste like oranges, though. Okay, so we have all that in there. Now, I have some water here. This water is warm, okay? It's a little warmer than we might normally use. It's probably about 105 degrees. And that's because this is a lot of sugar to dissolve. And with the open mouth like this, putting the lid on and shaking it up, they leak. Okay, they can leak. So I don't really want to do that, so I have to stir it, which means it's going to take longer. So I wanted to use warm water. That way it melts the sugar faster. A word on water. If your tap water tastes good, meaning doesn't taste chlorinated, go ahead and use it. If your tap water tastes like the local swimming pool, you probably don't want to use that. We actually have a chlorine filter on our house, so our tap water tastes pretty good. We have an RO filter as well. I don't recommend RO water unless you're going to be adding a lot more stuff to your brew, because it takes the minerals and things out, unless you have a remineralization, of course, you know, that kind of thing. But I don't like to use RO water, but our tap water does taste really close to it, so I know it's good. Now I have to stir this up, which means I need my spoon of unusual size. And there we go. And now we just stir it up. Really, just mix it up real good. You want to make sure that there is no solid sugar in this at all. Yes, I know this spoon is just too big. I've yet to get the smaller one. It won't be as funny when I get the smaller one. In stirring this up with the mint in here already, I'm bruising the mint up that much more, so that helps to extract even more. It smells like a mojito. It really does. I'm not a big fan of mojitos. You really like them.
Oh no, that means I'll have to drink this all by myself.
You never know, I might like this. But this is the way we like to brew if we can, using stuff that grows in our backyard. I mean, that's wonderful. If we could grow sugarcane, I would have done it that way. See, this is already going to have a bit of a color to it, I think. It's going to be a little bit golden, which I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like all my sugar is dissolved. So we'll get rid of that.
We wanted to make sure that not only was it dissolved and incorporated thoroughly, but we paused a few times while Brian was doing that to see if anything settled out. Because if it does settle out, when we go to take our reading will be inaccurate.
And I might think it's not going to come out as sweet as it's supposed to, or vice versa, and stuff. Things. I'm going to take a reading, and what I mean by that is hydrometer in a graduated cylinder and a poor man's wine thief, also known as a turkey baster. It's okay if you have a wine thief, feel free to use it. And the reason for the reading is to verify our numbers, to make sure that this should be what we expect it to be, and see what it's going to do. It gives us a reference point to start with, so at the end we can figure out the final alcohol by volume and things like that. Okay, looks like 1.124. Now, if you did the math on the 0.046 thing, you would figure out that, wow, that sounds kind of high, and here's why. This container is supposedly a gallon, but it's actually a little smaller than a gallon. And if you noticed, I left headroom because this could bubble up and it could go through the top. And I don't want that to happen. So, in doing that, it actually concentrates it just that little bit more, and we get a little higher gravity. But 1.124, really not a problem. What I'm going to do now is just pour this right back in. And we don't have to worry about oxygenation or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I probably should oxygenate this a little bit before we get going. But I do want to get my yeast in there. As I said, we're using Lalvin 71B yeast. It's a 14% wine yeast that I love it. This is my new favorite yeast. We use it all the time. I just bought another 10 packs of it because, well, it's just that good. And my rule on yeast is, if you're using a packet, that is, you want to use half a packet for up to a 3-gallon batch. You want to use a whole packet for over a 3-gallon batch, and I eyeball the half packet. By the way, if you're using exactly 3 gallons, do whatever you want. You can put half, you can put whole. It's all good. I won't judge. And I just want to use about half of this. That's about half. You cannot actually overpitch yeast without being like really ridiculous about it. Like if I put 4 pounds of yeast in here, obviously I overpitched my yeast. But you can underpitch. And the secret to that is a lot of what's in here is actually dead, okay? And they serve as nutrient for those that are alive. That's why I don't really worry about adding nutrients because it's already in here really. But if you don't have enough viable cells, in other words, you take a very small sample, you might not be able to build up a colony with any amount of efficiency or at all. So that's why I like to put in just enough that I can get a good colony in just a couple of days or hours sometimes, and we go from there. What I want to do, though, is stir up a little bit more. I'm just going to use the turkey baster here and stir that up a little bit, and I'm going to blow some bubbles in it to oxygenate it. Because there's really no other convenient way to do it. So it's just going to be kind of crazy sounding. I swear it's the turkey baster. Now, you might be wondering, why am I adding oxygen to this in the beginning? And that's because in the very beginning stages, to reproduce and build up a colony, yeast actually consume oxygen. So by adding oxygen to this must, we're giving them what they need to get going. Now, eventually, after a few days, what will happen is we don't want to introduce oxygen because it'll be gone at that point, and then we are working in a carbon dioxide environment. And the yeast will produce carbon dioxide. That's how that carbon dioxide got there. But at that point, when they're consuming the sugars and making alcohol, you do not want to introduce more oxygen because something called the acetobacter, which creates vinegar, is already present in nearly everything. But they get activated when there is oxygen and alcohol present. So it's kind of like it changes over. There's stages to the fermentation. In the very beginning, you want oxygen because there's no alcohol yet. Once there's alcohol, then you don't want oxygen because the acetobacters take over. And once they take over, you're making vinegar. You're no longer making a Mojito Kilju. Which sounds really funny when you say it like that. I'm going to make a Mojito Kilju. I'm just going to do this for a couple minutes. All right, that was fun, but now I'm done with that. We're going to move on. All right, so I put on a lid, I put on an airlock, and what that does is it gives some protection against bugs and, well, in our case, cat hair getting into our brews. It also gives you a nice visual to watch so that you think something's happening. Don't rely on bubbles, though. They don't tell you the whole story. They do tell you that something is occurring. However, leave something cold out with an airlock on it in a warm room, it'll start to bubble, even though there's no alcohol present. So it's not really a measure of alcohol or fermentation at all. But it is fun to watch anyway. What's going to happen now? This is going to sit for a couple of days, and you're going to see a follow-up. But then it's going to sit for probably another week after that, and then we'll have a follow-up video. So it's been 2 days, and as you can see, it is bubbling nicely. It's not a super active fermentation. It did take a while to start, and the only thing I can figure is maybe the mint is a little bit of an antibacterial, antimicrobial, anti-living thing, so it just kind of stopped it a little bit. slowed it, whatever, but it is actively fermenting. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but you can totally see bubbles coming up from within the liquid, and all the grain is at the top. There's bubbles all over the greens at the top. So I say this is a success thus far. I'm just going to let this go for about 5 to 7 days, and we'll give you an update at that point. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.